So I wanted to do a comparison on a couple of different industrial sewing machines, a drop feed machine like this Juki DDL-8700 versus a full walking foot, just so you can see if you're thinking about getting one of these machines, which one might be best for you. So first up, the DDL-8700. This is probably Juki's most popular drop feed machine. We'll do a walkthrough on this, and then we'll switch over to the LU-1508, which is a big walking foot. Some of my favorite topics to cover are comparing dissimilar machines. I did an old video on a portable Sailrite walking foot versus a big industrial walking foot, and people just got mad, and I wasn't sure why it drew such ire, but I think, that's not my intention, is to ruffle any feathers. I simply want to compare two machines to see which one you like best or which one might fit best in your workroom. Number one question I get on this 8700 is, can you sew leather with it? And yeah, you actually can. So we'll demonstrate that in a second, but this is an oil bath machine, so maintenance on it is super simple. So there's an oil pump in there that circulates the lubrication around the machine, and I like that it's a one-piece pan with a nice seal around it. And with this machine, I don't get any drips on the floor, so even if you have a carpeted or a nice finished floor, no worries, it'll stay nice and clean. It has a side-loading bobbin, so once you get good at that, it's pretty easy to reach up underneath, but for the first couple times, you might just tip the machine back to get the lay of the land. And there's a dry well on the left side of the pan, so there's actually plenty of room to reach your hand up for bobbin changes. Drop that guy down and we'll try sewing some leather. So while these are both industrial sewing machines, they are really a different class because this is just a drop feed machine, meaning that the feed dogs from underneath are what move the material through. There's no needle feed and there's no walking foot on this model. Yet it still does pretty good in leather. This is 2 layers of 3-ounce upholstery weight leather. So it's not hard veg tan leather, it's kind of soft upholstery leather. And it actually pulls it through just fine. I'm not struggling with it or feeling like I have to pull it from the back side like you might with a home sewing machine. It's got more power than that and a better feeding mechanism. So it does pretty good as long as you don't have a bunch of layers or bulky transitions that you're trying to climb over. So I think this is an easy machine to use. If you were trying to sew some leather, you probably want to take it a little bit slower than you might ordinarily, but the machine is variable speed by both the foot pedal as well as the dial on the servo motor. Nice high lift on that presser foot on that model too. This is one of the first things I noticed about the 8700. Let's get a little setup block under there and see what that lift actually is. So it looks like I can fit a 7/16 setup block under that, and that's not to say that you could sew something that thick, but just getting your work started and getting things positioned, it makes it a lot easier. So it's nice to know that you can sew leather if you need to, but most of the time with a machine like this, you'll be sewing cotton, cotton blends, canvas, vinyl, things like that. And when you're sewing something a little lighter like that, you can really move along. I'm actually using a 92 weight thread, and to accommodate that, I had to actually go from the standard DB x 1 needle, which is available up to about a size 18, to a DL by 1, and that I can get in larger sizes like this 20 needle, and that'll handle the thicker threads like this 92 weight, or sometimes called a Tex 90 thread. Sometimes the drop feed machine doesn't like bulky transitions, but here it is sewing over 4 layers of this upholstery class fabric, and does pretty good, no problem. Let's just see how it does going up and down this little lip. So you might just have to pin the transition down so that the foot can get up over because there's no walking foot, but other than that, doesn't seem to struggle too much at all. So if you're just used to a home sewing machine or maybe a knockoff brand industrial machine that's not doing what you want and you think this DDL-8700 might just be the ticket for you, I'll put links down in the description box if you want to check that out a little further. Otherwise, stick around, we'll pull out that big LU-1508 walking foot machine. And just a quick size comparison between the two. The 1508 does look quite a bit bigger compared to the 8700, but honestly this particular head looks big even next to a Consew 206 RB5, which is a real typical walking foot. It just has a longer dimension on the bed of it. But despite the fact that the cutout in this table is a little bit bigger, the actual working area on both these machines is about 10 inches. And the model number on this one is a LU-1508N. There's a few different sub-variants of them. One is even an H, which is a heavier duty model that takes a longer 190 needle system. This one we're using today takes a real typical 135/17 needle. The main difference between these two machines, as far as I'm concerned, is the feed mechanism. So here you have the feed dogs, plus you have a needle feed, meaning the needle is in the down position as the material is being fed through the machine. And finally you have the alternating presser feed. So that's the walking foot mechanism. So within these class of walking foot machines, there's two different types. Some walking foot machines don't have that needle feed, meaning the needle stays in the up position as the material is advanced, but this Juki is actually a triple feed, so it's got all three mechanisms, including the needle feed. This one actually has all my favorite accessories on it. There's a piping holder down under the table, and this one uses a digital servo that's really special. It's a Kinedyne HM750SL. And that just lets me sew stitch by stitch, almost like if I had a speed reducer installed. Now I'll put both of these machines, as well as all my favorite accessories, down in the description if you want to check them out a little further. This one also happens to use a needle position sensor, but you can get that for either machine. Most digital servos will let you adjust the speed. This one goes down to an incredibly low 50 RPM, which is almost too slow if you can believe it. I usually sew with mine about 700, and there's still just great slow speed control for that, whether I'm sewing leather or upholstery fabric. And I even mounted an aftermarket flip down edge guide, so that's kind of handy and can be a nice accessory that you might want to think about. This machine is kind of like the old Pfaff 1245 in that you have to pop the knee lift assembly off before you can tip the machine head back. Well, it's not a full oil bath machine. There is a partial oil bath under the hook. There's a welded steel pan underneath to catch any of the drips, and some people don't even realize it, but this is an oil bath, so you want to fill that with sewing machine oil just a little bit above the foam. And just like the 8700, this 1508 does a really nice job of containing all the oil, so I would have no hesitation using this on a finished floor. She's a big one. And that knee lift is really nice. It just has a very positive action and it lifts extremely high. So using the same setup blocks, let's see how much space there is under the presser feet. That's 3/4 of an inch. There's still plenty of extra space. I think I can add an additional 1/8 of an inch spacer. Still some wiggle room there. So over 7/8 of an inch under the presser feet. There's some other advantages that Juki touts pretty heavily, like this double thread tensioner and the fact that the feed dogs move in a rectangular motion, but I'm not so sure that they make that big of a difference. This machine feeds very similar to how my Juki LU-1508 feeds, and that's an old machine and doesn't have those benefits, but it still sews just fine. Paddle style reverse, I really like that feature. Easy to adjust stitch length. Integral bobbin winder, so there's some great features on this machine. Plus the hand wheel seems very large on the 1508 compared to a modest sized one on the 8700. This model is a top-loading machine and it has a very large U-style bobbin. In fact, that's about double the capacity of a standard G-style bobbin, so that's perfect for me because I won't run out of thread on my larger upholstery projects, but I personally just really prefer a top-loading bobbin, but I know some people are perfectly happy with the side loader. It's just whatever you like. Now this machine can handle a thicker thread, so you can sew up to 138 top and bottom on this without issues. But another advantage you have here is that feed mechanism can climb over large transitions and bulky seams. You see the needle position sensor stopping it in the down position there. But let's just see how it does climbing up over this transition, 4 layers of 3-ounce leather. I'm not pushing at all, I'm just holding that top layer down, and it just marches over without any issue whatsoever, and it's perfectly pulling up that stitch. So while you wouldn't use this machine with a silk or a super lightweight cotton, it's got about 3/8 of an inch of overall capacity, and in my experience can sew about a total of 20 ounces of upholstery type leather, so that's about all I would ever need for doing my upholstery projects. And with that needle position sensor, it's nice that it stops in the down position. Heel tap and raise it up. So it does a nice job pulling up a tight stitch even on thick leather projects, but still the overall capacity on this is about 3/8 of an inch, and that's exactly the same as what you'll find on a Consew 206 RB5. I have a penchant for converting these machines over to a longer 190 needle system. I've done that on my LU-1508, and I'll probably make that conversion on this 1508 at some point. So that'll make it a lot like the 1508H, and in that case you can sew through material about up to a 1/2 inch thick. I love doing detailed leather projects on this machine, and that may have more to do with the fact that it has the Kinedyne servo on it than exactly what model it is, but the walking foot does definitely help. Presser foot sets are widely available on this, like this 1/4 inch piping foot. That's one I use very frequently, and actually it uses the same feet as the old Singer 111, the Consew 226, and even the Consew 206 RB5. What I'm switching over to here is more or less a standard presser foot, except for the center foot actually has a split in it, and that just lets me visualize a pre-cut line in my leather project. And that way I can pretty well see right where my needle's going to land, just following that pre-cut line. So that's the kind of power and control you really like to have if you do much leather working, and if that's the plan, I would definitely steer you in the direction of some sort of a walking foot, preferably a triple feed walking foot like this 1508. These little detailed projects can be so much fun, especially if you have the right sewing equipment. Yep, I'm following my line nicely, so we'll carry on. But you can see how the material is just very easy to pull through, and you're not fighting it any point along the way. Very, very smooth machine. Love that stitch by stitch control too. Couple of back tacks over our previous stitching, and this little keychain will be done. And honestly, if you want to get into leather working, there's all sorts of fun projects to try. And as simple as it sounds, I really like the access door on this Juki. It's just magnetic, so it lets me get in there and inspect things and do a little light oiling. What do you think, Trooper? Which one do you like better? So bottom line, if you're considering one of these machines, it really comes down to how you intend to use it. Now, if apparel is the main goal, I would say a drop feed machine would be just perfect. On the other hand, if you want to do a lot of upholstery or work with medium to heavy duty fabric and leather, a walking foot would be a much better choice. And you can find both these machines as well as some of my favorite motors and accessories right down in the description. Full oil bath, mini oil bath, small hand wheel, large hand wheel, light to medium fabrics, medium to heavyweight fabric and leather, small side loading bobbin, extra large top loading bobbin, one mean machine, also mean machine. Yes, good. What are you carrying on about? Which one do you like? Walking foot? Then once you pick your machine, you can start working on that cool new cover. Yes. Yeah, I like that. Where wax canvas and personal expression meet. And what about you? Do you have a little cover? Oh, that doesn't look good. Time to call Sailrite for some more waxed canvas. You could even make it with a little scissor sheath. Oh, that's nice. I like that.